Hey, everybody. Welcome into another episode of SEC State of Mind presented by FanDuel. I'm Taylor Davis, joined by Jason Campbell. What's up, everybody? Hope you've had a great week since we last caught up. If you missed our episode last week, you know I'm going to plug it and tell you to go on back and listen because Jay and I had the opportunity to have Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lea on the show. And Jay, you and I debriefed a little bit, but let's do it here. I have gotten to cover Coach Lea. You said you've said hello in passing, but he's kind of different, and I mean that in the most complimentary way. Like I kind of mentioned in the interview, he's very philosophical. He's very intentional. He's very cerebral. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation with him.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the conversation. You talk about a guy that has his beliefs, right, in his program, or the guy that walked that campus before at Vanderbilt, and all the things that they've been accomplishing over the last couple of years as far as like their facilities are getting updated, right? Mm-hmm. So they can be second to none. And then you talk about being in the city of Nashville itself recruits kids. Mm-hmm. But he talked about not just going to Vanderbilt, but he actually grew up in the hometown. That's his hometown. Yeah. So everything he's known about the sport or grew up, it's a little bit of added pressure because your friends you grew up with, most of them are Vanderbilt friends and alumni. And so you want to, do well by them by winning. Like he said, his first couple of years was tough. But he had a chance over the last couple of years to get his recruiting classes, to get his guys to buy in what he's trying to coach, which is the chip on the shoulder mentality. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of been paying off for Vanderbilt the last 2 years. I know Diego Pavia gets a lot of credit and everything for his edge, but, Coach Lea, and there's a lot of other guys on that team, and he has a lot of credit that should be given his way as well.
Yeah, and on his staff. I mean, he made mention to Tim Beck and what he's done with that offense the past few years. And look, they've got a 5-star quarterback that's in there. So as much as we talk about Diego Pavia being, a thing of the past, what their future could be, maybe just as exciting. So if you missed the episode last week, make sure you go back and check it out. It really was such an insightful conversation with Coach Lea, and we're super appreciative that he took the time to come on. And we love talking some college football around here. And there has been some college football notes that we want to touch on real quick, but we don't stop around here. We've got another guest that's coming on today's episode, and it will deviate from football a little bit, but it's a topic I love talking about. We have national championship, 8-time national championship winning coach KJ Kindler, the head coach of the gymnastics team at Oklahoma, is joining us here in just a few minutes. I am pumped. You want a masterclass on coaching? Look no further than KJ Kindler. It's going to be awesome. So hang around. We're going to get to that here in a few minutes, but going to talk about some of the biggest headlines that have been coming out lately around college football, and some of which points us to week one. And I can't even wait. I can't wait because I love summer, but I am so excited for this college football season, and we've got some game times and networks that have been announced just to satiate us a little bit until we finally get to kickoff. We'll start with our alma mater, Jay, who isn't starting out with an easy opponent. The Auburn Tigers are playing neutral site under the big lights against another Power 4 opponent, Auburn Baylor, to kick things off. That one is going to be a 2:30 game on ABC. I'm so excited to see what Coach Golesh is going to put out there and what this Auburn team looks like. It'll be our first chance to see Byrum Brown in the Tigers uniform. What are you most excited about when the Tigers face Baylor week one?
Man, all the things that you don't get a chance to see in the spring or summer, right? When it's the opening game, it's the season. It kicks off the season nationally almost. When you think about it, a lot of eyes will be on this game, national televised in a prime slot. So you think about two offenses first and foremost, right? Even though it's two defensive head coaches. One defensive head coach and Golesh, the offensive head coach. But you think about the offenses overall, just because that Baylor can light up the scoreboard. You saw a year ago, they put up over 400 some yards and everything, but Auburn was able to create turnovers, which ultimately ended up helping Auburn win that game. Mm-hmm. When you think about, getting DJ Lagway from Florida, playing with a little bit of want to add an edge to himself this year to say, hey, that season ago, what you saw at Florida is not who I am. So more of this is redemption year for DJ Lagway. Byrum Brown want to showcase his opportunity to play at the highest levels in college football, right? Playing at the SEC, you get a chance to try out on the field. I just feel like for him, he's going to be so excited to put his mark on his football team early and often. But then I think about the defense. And, no one knew about Xavier Atkins this time of the year a year ago.
Yeah.
He's a transfer from LSU at the time, and what this guy was able to do throughout the year. I'm sure Baylor would know where exactly he is at all times during the game. But I'm excited to see Auburn has 50-some new players on the team. So you really can't look at last year's roster and say, hey, this or that. Like, this is a completely new team. You look at Baylor, they had a lot of turnover as well.
Yeah.
You think about it overall. So, but you're talking about one coach for Baylor who was in the SEC as a defensive coordinator for LSU years ago.
Yep.
Who wants to try to, get things going back. He's almost up for a contract, and he's got to prove something to Baylor, whether it's moving forward or they're going in another direction. And then for Auburn, Coach Golesh, he wants to rewrite the script. What happened the last 5 years is gone. Like he said before, he hasn't played Alabama yet. So that's his whole mindset on this season.
Yeah. Our friends over at FanDuel have Auburn picked 7.5 at this point. Obviously, it's May, so things can change, but definitely excited to see how both of those fare. I agree with you. I mean, Dave Aranda has been a name that was a bit of a hot seat name this past season. And were they going to move on, or were they going to give him another opportunity? And DJ Lagway going to Baylor, I think, has been kind of on the down. Like, people haven't talked about it as much. And keep in mind, Walker White had gone to Baylor, who was formerly at Auburn. He is no longer there because they brought in DJ Lagway. So the movement piece of college football completely takes over per usual. But I think that this game is really going to give people a good sense of what both of these teams are going to be. So I love starting out with an out-of-conference Power 4 opponent like that. We're also going to have round 2 of Clemson-LSU to start the season. What's so interesting is we thought that game last year was such a tell of what season was. It wasn't, okay? LSU won that by the skin of their teeth, and it's actually because both teams were not good. So I'm hoping that both of these teams are in better places. I fully expect LSU to be, and you never know with Clemson what Dabo is going to be able to put together. But that game is going to be 6:30 on ABC. And then, of course, with that being Labor Day weekend, you will have games on Sunday. Louisville is going to face Ole Miss, also 6:30 on ABC. And then another time slot that came out, the one that it's been circled for a long time for a lot of people, and now they've got a time to put on it. LSU heads to Oxford to face Ole Miss. This one will be the Lane Kiffin insert word to describe this battle. September 19th, it will be the night game, 6:30 on ABC. I fully expect every possible member of security that exists in Oxford to be at Vaught Hemingway Stadium at 6:30. Actually, I'll go beyond that. Every member of security needs to be in the Grove in Oxford, probably the day before. That one's going to be spicy.
Yeah, that one's going to start early in the week. But let's go back a little bit. You talked about Louisville and Ole Miss. That game to me is intriguing because Louisville had a really good team a year ago.
Yeah.
My team that went into Miami and beat Miami last year. Had every opportunity, to almost make the playoffs. That they could have kept it up later in the year. So Ole Miss can't go into there worried about 2 weeks down the road, and they're going to play a good Louisville team. And if they lose that game, it takes a little bit of lackluster off of the Ole Miss LSU game. You want that game to be 2-0 when you get to game 3. So that's an important game. Keep your eyes on that ball game because Louisville is a team that you do not want to sleep on. When you think about LSU and Clemson, LSU has got to focus on Clemson. They want to return the favor, right? Like, Dabo's competitive. He's going to say everything he can to get those guys ready to play. And last year, that game went down to the wire, and everyone on TV was like, oh, man, Nussmeier's this, and everybody is Clemson. Yeah. And neither did we not know that both teams weren't going to be that good. So week 1 doesn't tell you a whole lot. It just gets the season started with intriguing matchups. But after week 3 and 4, now you kind of know where your team is and who you are. And I think that's for every team in college football. But I'm definitely looking forward to the Clemson, LSU, and Louisville and the Ole Miss game as well.
Yeah, what a strong way to start. And obviously there's plenty of others to get excited about, but those were some of the highlights in the SEC. And of course, LSU Ole Miss, I get it. Like the results from the week before are going to play in, but we all know that one goes beyond the field a little bit. And, Lane Kiffin has been under a little bit of heat in the past couple of weeks for some comments that he has made at Ole Miss's expense. I mean, it feels like that one, the fire just won't go out. And I don't know, to some degree, maybe he won't let it. But Steve Sarkeesian's also out here throwing shots at Ole Miss, saying that as long as you take basket weaving, you can get a degree from Ole Miss. And now Pete Golding is having to defend Ole Miss from the former coach of Lane Kiffin, but now Steve Sarkeesian's out here hating on the academics. I mean, it's just, we need to play football so bad. Nobody has enough to do, I guess.
Off season draws a lot of headlines, right?
Yeah.
And you want it to be the right headlines. Yeah. And what keeps attention on football? SEC fans are loving it. Yeah. Ole Miss fans may not be loving it as much because they're getting the ones taking a shot at. But at the end of the day, it just adds fuel to the fire of the matchups. I'm not sure if Texas is on Ole Miss's schedule this year or not, but I haven't looked that far. But when I think about that LSU Ole Miss game, security will start immediately Sunday evening, like immediately about how far do you keep people away? There will be more security brought in just because of the magnitude of what's happening.
Completely.
And it just seems like a bad divorce right now, right? Like at the end, they kind of both knew one was going the other way while the other one was trying to hold on. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't end well. And it just carried over to the off season. And truth be told, it probably won't peacefully be moved on until 2 years from now.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I like competition. I like, whatever gets you going, but there is a level of respect. But I don't know what Pete Golden did to Steve Sarkeesian and did to
right.
I get Lane making all his comments because that's Lane. He's been doing it since he was always coaching. But Steve Sarkeesian dropped in.
Like, where'd that one
come from? So I don't know.
I mean, look. Everyone's given Ole Miss quite a lot of bulletin board material. I mean, like, you're just repeatedly telling Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacey and all those guys that they're an afterthought or they're, kind of the punchline right now. So it's going to be interesting what they look like.
Media Day is going to be interesting.
Ooh, yes, it will. Yes, it will. That's coming up in July. Well, before we get to KJ Kindler, one more thing that has come back into conversation, the college football playoff expansion conversation. And this time expansion is being discussed as a 24-team playoff. And we've got differing opinions amongst the conferences. Shocker. And the ACC and Big 12 are very vocal and are in the news right now expressing support and desire to expand to 24 teams. And I'm not going to say anything that comes across snarky because I'm not trying to do that. But there is obviously incentive for certain conferences whose teams are struggling to get into the 12-team playoff. Let's just say it like that. Okay. Meanwhile, Greg Sankey is sitting here going, no, why would we diminish the importance of every single week throughout the season? We are giving it way too much cushion, and you are taking away the gravity of every single Saturday in the fall. And that's what makes college football so great. When the margin for error is this big, it's razor thin. Every game has you on the edge of your seat. Every game has you wanting to either be in attendance or be locked in watching it. And yes, everyone can look at it and say, well, a 24-team playoff is going to be a bigger money grab. Well, you can also say us putting a lot of emphasis on regular season also gets the most money, because if you're sitting there looking at your schedule and you know that your team can afford 3 or 4 wins, you may not get season tickets. You may just decide to go to the Iron Bowl and then wait for the playoff run. Like, I see it both sides, but to me, 24, I mean, at that point, it feels like participation awards to me. I think 24 is way too big of a jump.
Well, that's what's happening in basketball as well, right? You go
Yeah.
from 64 to 76, right? Like we've been
everyone.
watching, 64 teams get in the tournament for how long? And then you have to play in right before for those guys to make the final of the 64. Like it's always kept you intriguing to watch because you know how hard it is to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Now it's the same thing in college football. You know how hard it is to get into the top 12.
Yeah.
So of course, if you're the ACC or you're the Big 12, you're going to vouch for 24 because now that gives you a chance instead of getting one team or maybe two, you may get four.
Multiple.
So that's 14. That's more money for your conference. But the SEC, they're already getting like 4 teams most of the time. Big 10 is typically getting almost like 4 teams most of the time. So those teams are not affected. Those conferences are not affected as much, but it puts more emphasis on, especially going 9 games now in the SEC.
Exactly.
Like everyone's watching each and every week. A 2-loss team can still make the top 12. And
especially with your schedule.
Their schedule. So, but if you go to 24, 2 losses doesn't seem like, oh, that's not a big deal anymore. Now you're going to get a 4-loss team in there. Like, it's like the NFL has been good in the playoff for so many years because they never changed the format.
Yeah.
Right. And like they've changed rules, like overtime rules where everybody gets a shot now since the Josh Allen and Mahomes deal.
Never forget.
Like so everyone gets a shot, but they didn't change the format of how many teams. And if you want to put the top 12 in, then put the top 12 in. And stop saying we're going to take one from this conference and one from that conference that may not be as equal conference. So we'll see what happens. I just hope this whole thing don't become a money grab, and also we start losing the emphasis and importance on why you tune in each and every week to watch your team play.
Exactly. Completely agree with you, but it will continue to be talked about. No surprise here. Well, we are so excited to welcome in head coach KJ Kindler of the women's gymnastics team at Oklahoma, the dynasty that has been the Sooners gymnastics team. So excited to talk to her. So let's welcome it in now. All right, everybody. Well, as promised, Jason and I are so excited to welcome in our guest here on SEC State of Mind, presented by FanDuel. 8-time national championship winning head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners women's gymnastics program. Everyone welcome KJ Kindler. Coach, so good to see you. If you're watching on YouTube, she's clearly in the beautiful gymnastics facility, which I have gotten a tour of, and it is unbelievable. And I know that really there's no downtime. There's no slow time for a head coach, but we got to go back to April and what happened in Fort Worth. You guys, once again, hoisting that trophy. I was able to be down there on the mat, but I kind of wanted to go back to heading into the 4th rotation because it was as close as we expected it to be there with a field that stacked. And you guys headed into the last rotation trailing, but you head to floor. What were some of those conversations? What was the energy like as you knew we could do this, but we have one more rotation to go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what an amazing competition for the fans to watch, people at home, and of course for us to experience in person.
Yeah.
I love going into the last rotation behind.
Okay.
I really do. I think that's a fighter's mentality.
Yeah.
And so I felt like we were in the perfect spot. I actually worry a little bit more if you're ahead or have quite a big lead that you might get a little conservative and you might hold back. I think that's actually happened to us the year before. We were a little less than stellar on our last event, trying to hang on to our lead. So I totally loved that they were in this fighter mentality. We weren't down a lot, so I knew we could do it, and our team knew we could do it. Tom Haley is like the absolute best motivator in the world, and I can only imagine what happened in the circle on floor and the colorful words that were used. But I would say like he is really great at like getting them to be their best in the moment that they need to be their best in. And so we didn't say, oh, we're behind, let's get going. Like we didn't have that conversation. We went over there knowing we're fighting for our lives, so let's do it. And I think our whole team, like they knew it. They knew it, and they really felt they could do it. I'm big on the art of manifestation, and so we'd been manifesting this probably for a couple weeks. So I felt good going in. But yes, I'm sure going in behind, it's a nail biter for everybody else, but I feel good.
That's awesome.
So you kind of like took over my question that I was going to ask. I was just about to ask you, what separates championship teams mentally more than physically? But you kind of just answered that when you talked about going in behind and having that chase down mentality, like a fighter. Like you look up and you say, okay, this is what has to be done to go out and win. So I guess pivoting from that, then how do you keep up when you won as many championships if you won? How do you keep challenging your team to keep looking forward, but to stay hungry?
Yeah. I mean, I always talk about this. Every team is different. No freshman class has ever won. No team of this dynamic has ever won. And so we, as a staff, having won 8, no one on our team has ever won 8. They just haven't.
Yeah.
So it's about creating that experience, and it's new and different for every team, but it's about creating that experience for them and wanting them to have that same exhilarating feeling. And the chase in the preseason it's terrible. It's the hard work. It's the sweat. It's just being downright exhausted and tired and fighting through it. And it's then that you get close with each other, and that chemistry and that dynamic is so important when you want to win a championship, far more than any push-up or pull-up or running, sprinting drill I could do, So those moments are the ones that you capitalize off of at the end, and every team wants to do that. So I think the hunger, it does come from the top down. We need to show that we are not complacent as a staff, like, oh, we've won 8, let's go to the Bahamas. That's not where we're at. We're still kicking it. We're still coming in. We're still putting the program first. And so I think it comes from the top down. They see that, they learn from that hunger grows also from the upperclassmen down. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a mentality, and we're really fortunate. I always tell the seniors, your number one job is to maintain the culture, keep these guys hungry. The culture changes. It's always changing. It's always evolving. But if you can just make it a little bit better or a little bit different in your own way, but make it a priority, that's what those seniors' jobs is.
Yeah.
And so they need to get those freshmen on board and win that next national championship.
There you go. That's what's always, I tell people all the time, covering gymnastics is so different from any other sport that I cover. It is so nuanced, and the mental element of it is so impactful. And so I think it's why, looking at what Oklahoma has done as a program, the word dynasty inevitably comes up. And it's a feat that is so insanely difficult to attain that I think it's why people like myself and John Roethlisberger annoy you, because we keep saying it, and you continuously have to speak that message into your athletes. Like, yes, this program has done that, but this team hasn't yet. And getting them to buy into that year after year has to be a challenge. And what's so interesting to me is it's not just the upperclassmen. The freshmen get it too. We saw in Fort Worth, Ella Murphy and Mackenzie Eastup in these insane pressure moments in an environment they had never competed in before, and they were ready and equipped to deliver. And so I want to ask about that piece of it. I actually, doing media after the national championship, was asked this question about you, and I was like, I need to ask AJ this. When you are looking in recruiting, in building a team, is it more these qualities that you're noticing in these athletes in the search, or do you credit it more with your development process once they're there?
That's a tricky question to answer, because recruiting's cutthroat. We're all going after the same elite athletes. And so, and to be honest, you're on the phone that first day and you haven't even had a chance to get to know them, their character, all of those things. What I like to think is that the people who want what we have at Oklahoma, they end up here. They know, because I'm very candid in the recruiting process. I'm less glitz and glam and a little more substance, I like to think. Yeah. But I'm also very honest, because you have to want this. Totally. And the athletes who want this, they pick us. They pick us. So even though all the programs are going after these amazing women, I think the ones that end up being here are the ones that are supposed to be here. So those freshmen that you're talking about, they selected here because something sparked them about our culture, our place, like perhaps championships are really important to them, perhaps more than money, because now we're dealing with money. We've got it all going on.
Yep.
I'd like to think, those championships give you an edge, but I actually think just the mentality of the athlete, they know I belong here or I don't belong here.
Right.
And I'm going to be happy here or I'm not. And so I think a lot of times it's just kind of a natural progression of the recruiting process that you end up with the right people. Do we develop athletes? I think more so, and I'm confident in saying this, more so than anyone in the country in terms of developing them mentally, physically, having them grow in their technical abilities. Certainly the technical part of gymnastics is important, but also like you mentioned, the mental part of being under that pressure. If you're under that pressure year after year, you develop certain attributes that help you down the road. And so without being in that position, you never develop those. Yeah. So, 2024 was one of our most challenging years on record, but I would say we learned more in that year, and that staff and team included, than any other year in the last decade. And so, I don't know. I just love gymnastics because it's always a new challenge. Every day is different. People always ask me, how do you stay hungry? How do you stay motivated? Every day is different. I wish I could say like it's the same old, but it really is mind blowing how every day just develops in a different direction.
Right.
Yeah. Every great coach I've ever been around always say it's not a job because they love it. They love what they do. And getting up every day is, like you said, is different. It's something you cherish because you never know what's in front of you, right? For that day, you have to approach it. And I always say, to whom much is given, as much is required, right? So I think for these players, when they look at your program, I could tell that you're a championship coach because you're saying that, hey, it's not our job to go and fit into the player system. It's the player's job. Mindset, we've already created a championship program. So if you want to be a part of this, then your mentality going to have to match up with your work ethic. And those are the type of things I think is the reason y'all are so successful, because they can't come in and question what you're doing. Is it the right way? It's already proven, so when you say something to them like, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, they need to do X, Y, and Z and, because it's already proven to work. Yeah. When you think about all those things, I told Taylor, I'm a floor person. Right. I go to a couple gymnastics meets a year. Right. So, and I have a goddaughter who's super, super talented, and she's so young right now, but she's super talented. It's like she goes all over the world in gymnastics. And I'm just like, when I go, I see them doing these different dances. Like the floor gets me on my feet. Right. Yeah. People are like, hey, can you sit down, sir? Can you sit down?
I mean, you're 6'5", Jay. You're blocking people.
I know. That gets me on my feet, though. You know what I'm saying? Like gymnastics is packed nowadays. Like it's a lot of entertainment. And what point during the season though did you have when y'all as a team said, okay, we might have a chance to be special?
Yeah, the first day.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to attack it in that team retreat. The first moment you're together on campus, you got to know what you're aiming for. You have the number one recruiting class, but one of the best recruiting classes just walked out the door, but you have to start with that mindset right out of the gate, I think. And as we were going, I was so impressed. Here's what I was most impressed with is our leadership. That was my big question mark. Yeah. And I think I started seeing that, if I'm going to answer your question as accurately as I can, I started seeing that in the beginning of February, where I'm like, okay, this leadership of Faith and Ava and the way that they're approaching these women is working. It's absolutely working, because as we know, it can't all come from the coach. It's got to come from those senior leaders on the team or those junior leaders on the team that can know how to put these athletes in the right space. Yeah. And so I think beginning of February, I started thinking, wow, and I can tell you this, it couldn't have been more opposite of the group the year before. Their style of leadership, so different. And so I wasn't sure, how will this work? But with our new freshmen, it was actually a perfect marriage of leadership style and the freshman class. And so I would say beginning of February. But of course, you're saying we're special from the first moment. They gotta believe it right out of the gate.
There are sometimes you can look at a team in practice in spring and then right before season started, you can look and say, we got a chance because you've been coaching for so long, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that when you do retire, that's when you like, okay, I've really had enough. I've done everything I do. Until that moment, it's always in your mindset, probably 1-0 the next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell that.
Literally. And I love that you pointed out that this team was different, because I think the outside perception when people that aren't super involved look at you guys, it looks like copy and paste every year from the outside. But even me getting to like interact with the girls every year, this team was so different from last year's team. And I do think the leadership element, I mean, Jordan Bowers, who so excited for her, is headed to Nebraska to begin her coaching career. Shout out, yes. Jordan. So proud of her. But like, she had a very different leadership style. I thought she was going to like burn fire into the mat when she competed. And yes. Faith is like down dancing in the corral, and neither is right or wrong. It just is what fits the athlete. And this particular team really galvanized itself in a different way than last year's did. So the result was the same, but the way that they got there and the makeup of the team was so different. And I think that psychology piece of it is so interesting. And I'm sure every year teaches you more and more as you go, and you learn from the athletes and they learn from you. Were there any other coaches or mentors or anyone in your life that kind of helped mold this blueprint of a coach that you've become?
I mean, there's so many people who have influenced me, you know, from the second I was born till now.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of really strong female leaders that I definitely have in my archive that were helpful. And of course, watching the gymnastics greats, which I try to pick and choose little things from each one of them that kind of, you know, you put it in this big bucket and you make one cookie with it. It's just a bunch of different ingredients.
Yeah.
And so I would say, you know, Val Condos, I loved how she focused on choreography and the mental aspect of gymnastics, having very little technical background. I love listening to Greg Marston. And though we didn't always agree on everything, he filled the stands, and that was a priority to him. And it is a priority to us as well. And then Sarah Patterson, the way that they really focused in on execution and being very clean in their gymnastics. That's definitely something that resonated with me when I couldn't recruit as high of a level athlete. Like, I need to make this athlete as clean and have as little deductions as possible. And Suzanne Yocklin, who was really dangerous, risk taker. She was a risk taker.
Yeah.
And not all of us are in big moments. So like, all those people are so different. And then I had the people in my own life, you know, that's me watching from afar.
Right.
And then I had people in my own life, and I'll always say, like, I had a great college coach and he inspired me so much. And the assistant coach became the head coach, and I worked under her. And the thing that she gave me is a hands-off approach. So she really allowed me to make mistakes. She didn't tell me what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. She just let me do it. And I failed over and over. I did stupid stuff. I wish, you wish you could go back and I would be better now knowing everything I know, but I wouldn't be, because I would never have learned. I would never have learned. And she had this laissez-faire attitude, and she just let me screw up, and never like, you screwed up, but she let me realize it for myself. I developed a lot under her because of her, the way she led me, really. Yeah. And I kind of would, last year, I really had a hands-off approach. With a lot of coaches could step in, and I always say a coach knows when not to say something.
Yeah. Because
so many coaches want to get in there and get in your ear and say all the things. These kids' minds are going too. You have to know when not to interject yourself. And in this leadership thing this year, I wanted it to be organic. And I knew if I was like, oh, let's take leadership classes, let's teach you how to lead, because they hadn't had that opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, that would have really screwed the whole thing up if I had done that and inserted myself. Yeah. And instead, I let it develop. And now it feels brilliant. But I could also be sitting here going, I should have done that. You just don't know until you try and you see what the result is. But But I have had so many amazing people in my life and people to look to and strong women to look to, and also just so many great influences. One more person I have to mention. Her name was Mary Jane Olsen. I grew up in a college gym. Yeah. I grew up in a Division III college gym. I was in the club and I watched these women, and they were my heroes, and they were Division III gymnasts. And she was the head coach. This is back in 1978 when I was 8 years old. By the way, now you know how old I am. But like I was looking at a woman leading a team. That almost never happened back then. There were no female coaches back then. And I was like in this environment where there was a female coach. She was the head coach, and she had all these amazing women who I could look up to, at that very, very young age. So like, I've just been really blessed by being, kind of plucked into all these interesting environments, and also like really studied the sport. Immersed myself in learning about the sport as much as I could when I was younger, and being a club coach, which a lot of our college coaches haven't coached club like at a deep level. So I feel like I just have a lot of different things to bring to the table. I don't know, but so many people have touched my life. This is not My Life by KJ Kindler. So let's move on.
Listen, when you're a coach of this caliber, people are curious what made this, you know what I mean? Because like we've said, it is such a nuanced sport with different personalities every single year. And yet you guys are able to yield the same results, which I think is a product of all these different perspectives that you said you get to bring in. And I think what you said about being allowed to kind of create your own ownership in your sport is a big part of it too. And I mean, Jay, you talk all the time about, especially in this day and age of college sports, these athletes still need to be self-accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely. When just hearing your overall story, but when I think about like playing quarterback on a football team, right? You're part of the team, but sometimes in wins and losses, people can write in the paper, make you single out as you're an individual. Like, because you take on so much of the pressures or so much of the things that didn't go right, whether you was part of it or not part of it, it's just part of your job. When I think about gymnastics, I think about a lot of these young women that I watch on TV, how they have to handle a lot of pressure moments, because even though they're a team, you're almost doing individual, by yourself. Like you're on the mat, you're on the vault, you're doing the beam, all these different things you're doing individually that affects the team score. As a coach, how do you handle your team mindset as we're operating as a team, but you can feel the pressure on one maybe that is coming all down to it. You look up, it's like, okay, we got to get this on the vault, or we got to get this on the beam. And the only one individual can go and do that. As a coach, how do you channel all of that when it's so much pressure on these young people?
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. I often stand at the end of the beam at the national championship, and I think to myself, thank goodness I'm not up there right now. Because I sometimes don't know how they handle the weight of it. It is a heavy weight, and especially on balance beam and bars, very intricate events that the very smallest error can just, send you sideways. So it's obviously something you train, but I think it all comes down to chemistry and knowing that those guys back there, they're backing you up, even though you're up there alone and it feels like it's all on your shoulders. That they're backing you up, and that they trust you. I think that trust component amongst teammates and between coach and athlete is absolutely huge. They read every signal. I always call myself, I'm the nonverbal queen. Like, I can see something from across the room and I know something's going astray. I'm like, I got to get over there. Something's not right there just from her facial expression. So like them inside and out, and you can feel that weight. I was talking to Ella Murphy before her beam routine, and she came after a fall. And I'll tell you, she's a freshman. And I could see in her eyes, I just talked to her normal like I always do, but I could see in her eyes the weight of the situation.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot you can do in that moment except you be normal. So I'm being normal. I'm going to be normal, even though I'm feeling the same thing she's feeling, right? And you just try to put them in a position where, oh, she trusts me. She's just talking to me the same. She hasn't changed anything. She's not like telling me this is an urgent moment,
Right.
So, and I think the same is true with the athletes. They just take it on like that chemistry between them, that trust between them that's developed all season long. I think they invest in that in those moments.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always feel like I'm holding my breath down there. So I'm always so shocked when they look so calm up there.
I know.
One interesting element of this, and I think we've probably talked on this a little bit in coach meetings, but it just reminded me when you were saying that, you were in a gym with a female coach, and that wasn't the norm at that point. And you have been the head of a women's program that is respected across all sports, all levels, gender doesn't matter. Like Oklahoma Gymnastics is a success. Oklahoma softball is a success. You and Patty Gasso, both at that university, have built women's programs that are revered across the country. And I don't know how often you and Coach Gasso get to interact, but how much pride do you have in doing that and helping? I mean, we've seen it on our side. The growth of women's sports just continues. But for two of you to be at the same university and kind of helping champion that and women's programs continuing to grow.
Well, you can imagine Patty and I are competitive people.
I do know that.
So she always says to me, when you win your championship, then I'm like, dang it, now I gotta win my championship. So she always says that to me. And it's honestly, it's just inspiring. Even when the year before and we have our next season, our softball and they were telling us, we went and did an appearance there in the softball team. They were telling us how they postponed their practice watching our meet because they were like in it. They were in it. And of course, we fell on beams. So they were like nervous and all the feels. So these women, both on the team and in the coaching staffs, we inspire each other because that kind of success is not normal. It is not normal.
Right.
And so to see someone, their facility's literally next door to ours, to see someone do the things that she has done and at the level in which she's done them, dominating her sport in many years, like mind blowing. And it's certainly inspirational, of course, as her colleague and her coach. Yeah. And we do things differently, no doubt about it, but I have picked her brain many, many times. And we have had issues on our teams where like, hey, have you had this issue? And how did you deal with it? And it's very therapeutic to have someone right there that you can kind of bounce things off and kind of thinks the way you think.
Yeah.
And you can relate to them. So, she's amazing.
So cool.
She's amazing. Yeah.
So cool.
Well, hey, like I said, you guys have built a powerhouse, a dynasty. So I came to Oklahoma last year. I walked the entire campus. So I got a chance to walk in some of the buildings with all the history, which is the unique thing about my job, being able to call games. But, it's been a tremendous honor to have you on the show today. Now, you do have a daughter that's in gymnastics in college, and she's at Iowa. How does that work? My dad was a coach, and and how does that work, Mom, being a coach?
Good question.
Well, it's twofold. I know too much, which is terrible, terrible. We sent her somewhere and she selected somewhere where I really trust what they have going on there. I feel totally comfortable with who she's underneath and the lessons and life lessons she's learning. Also the negative side of it, I don't get to see her compete and I don't get to relish those moments that I wish I could as a mom. That part of it is hard. I was able to make it to one meet at Carver Hawkeye, so I was excited about that. It was against Michigan State, and I was trying to be incognito in the audience. You know, I had a hat on or something, but it doesn't matter. They can find me. So they're, you know, and I always, you know, if she's on the beam, I'm just a nervous mom like every other mom, you know? So I'm just like, you know, gritting and moving with her and, you know, watching with one eye open.
Exactly.
So I'm just a mom in those moments, and I'm super proud of her. I just love, you know, the fact that she's doing this at this level. She has an amazing group surrounding her. So yeah, we're just super proud of her. Yeah.
So cool. That is hilarious. You in the stands like this. I mean, so relatable.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean? So relatable. I love it. Yeah. Well, my last question for you, because obviously this is SEC State of Mind, and you guys joined the conference a couple years ago, and obviously in gymnastics, the SEC just continues to bring insane talent year after year. I mean, this year's national championship final, 3 of the 4 teams were from the SEC. You guys are facing each other week in and week out, and the conference is better for it. What has it been like for you as a head coach making that transition into a conference that year after year is this stacked?
I mean, we can't win the SEC tournament. So seriously, there's problems. I mean, 2 years in, we're second both years. So like, there's still a lot of work to be done over here. But
that's a chase down.
That's how intense it is. That's how intense it is. And I actually think, you know, it's served a good purpose to be second in that meet. It has served a great purpose, but it just tells you how challenging this conference is. And on any given day, it was LSU last year, it's Florida this year. I'm hoping it's Oklahoma next year. Who knows? But you know, we're gonna still be shooting for it. But wow, I mean, first of all, the environments you're going into, I honestly can't believe that SEC regular season, like this year, we've never won at Florida since I've been here in 20 years. And we competed at Florida many, many times, even when we weren't in the conference, and we could not get it done. And so this year, that was huge for our program, doing that for the first time, because that environment's tough to compete in. You know, LSU, tough to compete in. Auburn, you know, the place is full, but there's also people on the floor, like you can reach out and touch their hair when you're competing. It's insane. So, you know, what the SEC brings is like amazing fan support. Obviously, the new media attention and all of that is super great for our student athletes. They deserve it. They've obviously positioned themselves well, but like challenged every weekend, and different challenges. It could be the environment. It can be a million different things. The travel, it could be, you know, whatever you have going on that week, but it's hard. It doesn't matter where you're going. It doesn't matter who you're competing against in the SEC, any given day, seriously.
We see it every single year, and honestly across all sports, but that's what makes the conference so great. We're biased around here, but I do think so. KJ Kindler, can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on the show and talk with Jay and I. Obviously, I love getting to cover your program, getting to cover the sport, and we on our side of things are very excited to see it continue to grow and get the recognition that it deserves. But congratulations once again on another title, on an amazing season, and best of luck with the off season.
Thanks for having me.